that our focus today will be on digital SAT and SAT, trying to give you as much as information possible about the SAT itself, the digital SAT framework, the scoring system, the various sections that they are there, and we will look at the breakup of the maths and English section, and we'll close the about SAT section at importance of SAT itself. We'll move across to our a plan kind of agenda that we have for today that will allow a lot of parents and kids to really try to create out a structure for themselves. We will move this across to our approach as well. How does Let's Unbound work with students in terms of helping them prepare their profile? We'll have the digital SAT, the pillars of success, the SAT diagnostics, and all of those various things will be typically covered across. We'll then also look at the resources that we do dish around. I'll take that resources part in a little bit of a moment. I think I'll start with the introductions now. Firstly, with the organization Let's Unbound. Let's Unbound is within the realms of skill build for the last decade. We have worked with numerous students, 4,000 plus, when it comes to working on administration with your admission skills, educative skills. We have got a host of programs when it comes across to computer sciences, to finance, maths, English, all of those various different aspects. And at the same time, we really prioritize our work when it comes to admissions counseling. We've got more than 125,000 hours of teaching sessions and have a global presence with plus 25 countries. The visionaries behind our organization, Amol Patil, Nishant, they are both experts when it comes to education consultancy. They have spent more than 10 years within academia, within the industry itself. Amol has gone ahead and has scaled more than 2,000 schools successfully and has impacted lives of more than 250,000 students. He has also consulted and scaled various startups across India and abroad, especially from IIT Bombay. And at the same time, Nishant has got a top rating as an educator with teaching and curriculum development, and has been spread across his experience from K-12 all the way up to executive MBA programs. Also been part of Mentor of Change, Atal Innovation Mission, and Niti Aayog. So that's the kind of people that we represent. On ethos level, Let's Unbound really holds a very strong value, which stems from the point of giving out as much as information possible in the realms of admission. Our objective as an organization is to create an equal level playing field for everyone across admission, where we really focus in trying to put out a whole host of resources. We will give you the information on these resources right at the end of our session. But as a vision of our organization, we really stem from trying to put up as much as information on admissions itself. And again, we do help numerous kids on their own journey to admissions abroad. Now, quickly moving across to my own introduction. I'm an international admissions consultant. I have worked with numerous firms globally. Crimson Education, Added Education are two top institutes internationally, where Crimson is largely focused on admission routing while looking at their Indian market. While on the other side, Added Education had started with Added Sports, and it had really taken across the sports routing to US admission. So while working across with these two firms, I have that typical understanding of those admissions. Overall, I have worked in this realm of consultancy within education and financial investments with Citibank, Standard Chartered, and have also had a stint with Jaguar Land Rover in its initial days when Tata Motors had bought it across from the brand of Ford. So that's my experience for the last decade. Now we'll be taking across the whole admissions aspect on about SAT itself. We'll be focusing across on that. Within US admissions, there are a lot of different parameters that really rules your chances for admissions abroad. But today, our focus will remain totally on SAT itself. You could access a lot of our videos on YouTube, where I have conducted various sessions going into all of the factors of Common App. Today, the real focus will remain on SAT itself. Now, SAT, as it's called, a scholastic assessment test, it is administered by College Board, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to expanding access to higher education. The College Board not only designs and oversees the SAT, but it also provides tools and resources like AP courses, which are advanced placement courses, PSAT, which is their practice SAT itself, and a whole host of financial aid programs to help students succeed in their academic and career goals. The SAT is a standardized test widely used by colleges, universities in United States and even countries abroad to evaluate the applicants. It's really designed to measure the skills and knowledge you have developed over the years in areas like reading, writing, maths, and it really assesses your readiness for college level academic. The test consists of two parts, as you can see on the screen, with the two main sections being the evidence-based writing and eventually your math section as well. And overall, it had a optional essay section, which I'm sure a lot of people still think across that it is valid till date. That has been discontinued in 2021. So today, the SAT section is largely in two parts: the English part, in a way, you see the evidence-based reading and writing, and the mathematical part within the maths itself. Each section itself is scored between 200 to 800, where the total range of the score lies between 400 to 1600. Now that is about SAT itself. Now what you need to understand, SAT is not just about a number per se. I'm sure the real focus always does rely how close can you get to that number of 1600, but it's not just a number. For many institutes, it's really a key part of holistic admissions process. It complements your GPA, extracurricular activities, and the personal essay. It also serves as a valuable opportunity to demonstrate your academic strengths. Very specific if you are not on one of those international boards, it's an IB or an IGCSE. For kids from CBSE and ICSE, doing a standardized SAT international test really does put across your academics on a comparative level. Now, many students do wonder, why should I take the SAT? Apart from college admission, a strong SAT score can actually open doors for scholarship and honor programs. Now, don't get me wrong by saying that your SAT is the deciding factor for a scholarship in America. Definitely it is not. Largely scholarships in America are run as need-based scholarship financial aid programs, where the final function of you to get that scholarship will be based on your financials. But SAT does play a vital role in that whole aspect, but it's a small part in terms of you really increasing your chances, as I've said, opening your doors for scholarship. And this is largely very true for your international students. It also serves as a benchmark, to demonstrate proficiency in the academic areas. So today we'll actually dive deeper into the structure of the test itself and the strategies to prepare it, how to approach it with confidence, and with the College Board's ongoing support and resources, students are actually really well equipped to navigate with SAT and beyond. So now we'll just move across with the various aspects when it comes to the digital SAT as it's now become. So you know that during the COVID years, one of the major things that it had come across with College Board itself, that the manual SAT that was typically happening where actually all of these exams were printed out and distributed globally. They have now moved on to the digital SAT section where you give this exam on a computer itself. There have been a lot of changes that have happened. We will be looking across on them, which is the next various section that, how does the SAT scoring actually work? So without further ado, let's move across to this part. Now, the first thing, the change that the digital SAT did was make the SAT exam itself is adaptive. Now, what happens is that stage one, as you can see on my screen, this stage will be equal or the same for every student that would be attempting SAT. So what happens is that you give the same set of SAT. It's got a mix of medium, hard questions, and dependent on how do you fare on this level, it would be decided that do you get into easier stage 2 or a harder stage 2. So if you perform well on stage 1, you would then move across to a harder stage 2. If you don't do well in that stage 1, very obviously you will be then given the questions which are largely there in the easier stage 2, which are mostly easier and medium question. The counter aspect of that then becomes your scoring range for that section will be then between 200 to 600. And if you do end up getting into easier stage 2 for both the two sections, English and Math, the maximum scope of your score then becomes 1200. And you realize if you're at 1200, you'll also see it in various other slides that we have prepared. You're not really eligible for a top 20, top 30 kind of a college. What you need for that is bare minimum 1400 kind of a SAT score. For that, you will need to get into the harder stage 2, where your scoring range then becomes 450 to 300. And then that is that whole challenge. Nowadays, SAT is not an exam that you just look across at as one stretch marathon. It is divided into two parts, becomes extremely paramount that you do attempt that first section with complete brilliance and have the opportunity to move across and really try to get into the harder stage too. Now let's move in to the various sections of SAT itself. So now we've got the reading writing section, you've got the math section, and as you can see, the total itself that's also typically provided across. What is there if you do the mathematics? The math section that you would have, you approximately have 100 seconds per question. So SAT is not really just a question or a test about your subject material, but in a way it is a pressure time test and also an endurance test. As you just see in the previous two slides, I had said that this exam itself would be running between 2.5 hours. So it is also really managing this time well. How do you really endure for 2.5 hours, and at the same time, how well are you able to really also utilize this time in its best possible fashion? So that's the overall structure itself. The time allocated, as you can see on my screen, 64 minutes, and you have got your 32 questions there. And on the others, and you've got the number of questions being 54, 27, as you remember, easier part, the common part, and then that decision between you going to the easier set of second question or the harder set of second question. Maths, 70 minutes is allocated for a total questions of 44, 22 in each. Overall, as it says, the time allocated 134 minutes, and you have the number of questions total at 98, with the total scoring being at 1600. So that's the overall structure of a SAT exam. Now let's go deeper into the various sections themselves. The math section is largely divided into these 4 subject areas between algebra, geometry, and trigonometry. The third section being advanced maths, and you also do have your problem solving and data analysis. Those are the various questions of the subjects that you could see. You could take a quick screenshot of this as well, just so that you could have these various topics and subjects available with you. You largely see that algebra and your geometry and trigonometry take up 70% of this whole syllabus. So kids which are doing extremely well on the areas of algebra, geometry, trigonometry, really makes sense that you would be taking SAT as that entrance exam. Overall, advanced maths, problem solving, and data analytics take up the next 30% when it comes across to the maths section structuring of the SAT exam. Now we'll move across from the math section to the reading and writing, the craft and structure in terms of the words in its context sense, the structure, purpose, the cross-text connection. This is a very strong, very important aspect individually. It is the most important aspect within SAT. It has the highest coverages of questions between 13 to 15, where the least amount of thing that comes across is between expression of ideas, where that comes down to 20%, 8 to 12 questions. And you're also very much tested on your information and ideas, where you're really being tested on understanding the central idea, the details, the command of evidence, being a textual quantitative. So that too is a very important section, followed by the standard English conventions, the boundaries, the form, structure, and sets. So overall, as you can see with both of these sections, the real agenda is to largely look at your strength when it comes across to not just knowing the subject matter, the content, but largely how successfully are you able to apply what you learned in maths, what you have learned in English itself. So that is a very, very important aspect that comes across with it. So just again, as a repetition, it's not just important to have your the knowledge behind the SAT itself, but it's extremely important when you're looking at topics as how you're going ahead and implementing all of
this information. Having a bit of a trouble with my again second year itself.
Yeah, hello. I guess now I'm connected back onto my headphones, so you can hear me much more clearly. Now we'll just quickly move across to the other important aspect within SAT, which is now to tell you why is SAT important. How are we supposed to look at it? This is various section that we'll also be discussing in detail. That while you're preparing for your SAT, it's very important to create a roadmap. Now, how does this roadmap work? It works in two parts. One part is you look at a college and you see what is the target that you need to create. Now, for example, a lot of kids that really want to get admitted at a certain brand of a university, an Ivy League, a top 20 private college, a top 20 public college, what is that kind of SAT score that you need to achieve? Now, how do you do that? So I have actually gone ahead and I found this data within Harvard itself, that what are the kind of SAT scores that are being submitted. Now, what you need to do, you need to find this data for Harvard's, you need to find it for Stanford's, you need to find it for all of the colleges that you'd be applying to. Now, one of the primary things that you could see immediately, that standardized test scores are considered. You can find it on every university's website. That is the SAT score considered? Are they SAT optional? Are they SAT blind? Or are they SAT mandatory? So if you see universities of California and a lot of universities within the state of California, the SAT is actually mandatory. So other SAT, they're actually SAT blind. So it's not mandatory. They're not even going to actually even look at your SAT score if you are applying there. But on the case that I can show currently on my screen, Harvard, it's very much a place where you need to submit a SAT score. Now, let's try to see it from the scores, where it is extremely important. How important is it to score? So if you see 50 percentile, which is almost half of the population, are people which are within the SAT score, let's say the evidence-based reading and writing, on 760 to 800 when it comes to your English section. To the vast majority of the students which are getting into Harvard are getting that kind of a score. On the other side, your SAT maths, out of an 800, they are very closely scoring to a 790. So if you could really see, 1550 is the kind of a score that is required for you to get into SAT. And you could see again, in terms of a score range between 700 to 800, be it maths, be it in English, you've got a 90% of the students that are easily scoring 1400 and above while the application is going into Harvard itself. So as I've said, it is extremely important for you to make sure that the colleges that you're applying to, you have looked across at their SAT score itself and are very check to work across on it. If you've seen the Harvard one, a top 5 kind of an institute, now looking at something which is between, let's suppose, largely between rank 40 to 50, you really need to score 12, 17 and above. So now going back to that one point that I had made, it's not really good for you if you end up into this section in both English and maths, because what will then happen, your maximum SAT score will then become 1200, and even a university as Texas A&M will be extremely out of your reach. So do make sure that while you're planning for your SAT, you're very clear that what kind of universities that you need to look across at. And many schools have nowadays, going away from those COVID years, have actually gone ahead and made SAT optional. So if you see notable examples like Columbia University, Princeton University, Cornell, Stanford, University of Pennsylvania, Johns Hopkins, Universities of Chicago, they have all gone back into that SAT optional. So more often than not, you would be seeing that your applications, while they're being evaluated, majority of the other applicants will be having a strong SAT score. And also going by one of the major statistics, which says that majority of the Indian applications do have a science or a STEM degree that they're looking across for, which also says that there are IT kids that have maths and the subject all the way up to grade 12. So more often than not, you would have this phenomena that majority of the applications coming across from India do have a strong SAT score. And also be reminded that your application and everyone else's application is not really evaluated in the same pool. Domestic pools are separate, international pools are separate. Within the international pool, they will look at the overall Indian application. And if you are one of those students that does not have a SAT score, you should largely have something really fantastic about your profile that could come across and compensate it. Otherwise, it's always good to go across and show across a strong SAT score. Do also remember the SAT curriculum itself. It is grade 10 mathematics, grade 10 English. Within the mathematics section, there's no negative marking. There's no negative marking in English as well. And at the same time, you're also allowed to use a calculator. So if you really compare it in terms of our other Indian entrance exam options, let's say a joint entrance exam, a SAT paper is very, very easy in comparison to a joint entrance exam. So more often than not, the Indian applicants will largely have a very strong SAT score. So one of my suggestions while working with students is always to attempt SAT. Another thing is SAT is not an exam that you need to attempt in one go. You can give 3 separate SAT attempts, bare minimum 2. Why am I talking about 2 to 3 SAT attempts? Because SAT, the eventual score that you submit, you're allowed to submit a super score. Now, what is a super score? If you give SAT once and you have scored well within your maths, so for example, the first time you got a full Monty in maths 800 and you got 700 in English. So technically your first SAT score, it is now 1500. The second time when you attempt SAT, you're able to get 800 in English again. So what will your super score become? The first math of 800, the second attempt English of 800. Putting them together, your super score will be considered as 1600 out of 1600. So and also be as a knowledge, it's not there that colleges would look at a single attempt of SAT separately from a super score. You could submit either of these, and there's no difference between a super score or a single attempt. So largely a huge amount of our students are actually attempting 2 to 3 SAT attempts, where that first SAT attempt is there just to understand how well you are doing in that section itself, where then it moves across totally to the super score eventually by your third attempt. Right now, the other way to look at how you're supposed to be scoring is now to be breaking down your application in terms of ranking. Right now, how does this also ranking work? You need to take all of these list of colleges and in your applications, divided them into 3 categories. Where category 1, the most difficult category, will be your dream colleges, largely the top 10, top 20 institutes. Then you will have your safety colleges, where dependent on how your first SAT score or your PSAT score has come across, are we just looking at rank 30 to 40, or are we bringing in rank 50 as well? But largely for any a student who's doing academically well, a top 50 college should be a safety college itself. Now you should be aiming at top 50 institutes in America, and as you can see, even to get into a top 50 institute, you bare minimum need to have 1400 kind of a SAT score. The scores that you can see are at a 50 percentile across all of these various colleges. And it becomes extremely clear that falling across in that easier SAT section 2 is extremely detrimental to your chances if you're looking at a top college in that way. Now, just continuing across in terms of that, extremely SAT importance, as I was even saying, John Hopkins and all of these universities have actually decided to go back when it comes across to that SAT optional aspect. And the list that I'd given before, Columbia, Princeton, Cornell, Stanford, UPenn, all of these institutes have actually gone back to SAT optional, and so has Harvard. And that's the whole aspect that I wanted to quickly cover you about, giving you that understanding. What is SAT? Why is SAT important? How is SAT used? And how are US colleges now coming back out of that COVID period, when the state of California had basically requested all of the colleges to make SAT optional or SAT blind, because the reach of SAT had really diminished due to the COVID breakout that had happened. Now, since we have gone back to our classroom mechanism, we have started, having the SAT again. It's become digitalized SAT as well. which has really increased its I would say range and its reach. And at the same time, you'd have a lot of host of colleges coming back. Now, within the SAT India scope, there are a lot of institutes that that have now gone ahead and have become are also looking across at your SAT score. So, Ashoka University, they have their own entrance exam, but you could also push across the SAT result, and they will definitely consider the SAT within the admission itself. Amity University, Noida, does also look across at SAT for their admissions. BITS Pilani, the Vidya Vihar campus, they also have SAT that they're looking at. Flame, Kriya, Indian School of Business and Finance, JSS Academy for Higher Education, Laksha University. All of these various colleges are looking at SAT. Now, another thing that I could do for you guys, I'll just drop this link on the chat section, and I'll request all of you just to quickly take a note of this link itself. This is from This is from the College Board website, and it really lists down all of the colleges within India itself that are looking at the SAT score. So I'll just drop it onto the meeting room itself, and you'll be able to access that website. And do keep it a note. It really does help if you're also looking at Indian application, which all different universities within India are also accepting that SAT score. Now we will move across to your plan. How do we now work with, or how do I, on this session itself, give students an understanding if they also want to work independently? How do we get the right kind of a SAT score? Now, moving across, these are the first kind of major steps that we do talk about while you should be trying to, let's say, set a SAT target. One of the biggest problems that we have had with students while attempting SAT, they absolutely have no clue of what kind of a range of score that they want to get. They treat the SAT as a situation where they will look at the numbers once they have come across, and then will select the list of colleges that they will be applying for. As a matter of fact, you need to do this on a reverse way. You need to set your target score, which is precisely university based. So collect a list of potential schools, create a list of 10 colleges that you're applying, 10 to 15, and then against all of those 10 to 15 colleges, write down the SAT score on their 50 percentile, and also research about that 75 percentile score for each school, and be very sure that you're trying to get close to that 75th percentile, because if you're looking at scholarships, you're looking at various other programs, a 75th kind of a percentile on your SAT score is the area that you would like to operate on. And you should be then, really identifying your special requirements, really sit down and look at, various colleges. So for example, your Georgetown may want to look at all of your SAT scores. Harvard may not want to look at all of your SAT scores. So that's a very important aspect, that once your list is created, do look at these special requirements. Are they going to see just your super SAT score? Are they going to ask you the breakdown for the top 2 or 3 SAT scores? Or let's suppose if you've gone ahead and done it 4 or 5 times, you've declared your 3, Georgetown may say send across all of yours. So it's very important to know the nuances of individual colleges themselves on how are they looking at that SAT score. And then eventually what you do, you will set your target from those 10-15 colleges names that you have, looking at their 50th percentile and their 75th percentile, and then try to go for that aspect. Now, another thing that you then need to do is then assess your current ability. Almost what we're trying to do, this is I would say the basis or the basics of navigation. When you want to get to some place, you would always plot where you want to reach, where you are. Where you are has been done through your assess your current ability. Now, one way how we could help you across as an organization, and we this happens almost for every student that we work across with. It's called a SAT diagnostic test that allows students to work. That gives students a very realistic idea of how their scores may come across. It's a very special test that Let's Unbound has created. It will give you a very in-depth understanding of your potentials. We will be looking in extreme depth when it comes across to your digital, to your SAT lab and that preparation. So that diagnostic test will happen. And what you largely need to do from that point onwards, once you have done your diagnostic test, take a practical test complete your SAT practices. We have a program in which we've got almost 20 SAT practicals that we create, and we almost recreate the whole environment that is required for you to go through with the SAT itself. At that same point, we then identify your gaps, calculate how many points you need to improve across for you to reach that target, and then eventually choose a prep method. Decide between a self study, a prep course, a large group, or very specifically, and a larger times that we or I have always suggested my students to use across, use a prep program which is one-to-one tutoring, because in that method you'll be able to really understand your problems on a very individual level and have them resolved in that way. Then the most important aspect then becomes is to create a preparation schedule, create an estimate study plan. Largely, you need to be planning 2.5 months to 3.5 months before you take your first exam. We always do say that if it's your first SAT attempt, you should be spending 3 months of you preparing for it. Schedule your practice tests in a way that if you're giving your actual SAT 8 o'clock in the morning, what we suggest people practice your SAT 8 o'clock in the morning. Always have a daily study plan. Dedicate time to your core learning concept. Practice the realistic question, and then you need to master those test taking strategies. So those are the various important things that you need to think across when you're preparing a complete schedule. Overall, post that, you need to really track your progress, write down your write down the date that you really started taking those practice tests, have a report in which you could see from one test to the other test, how is the data reflecting in terms of the result, what is the kind of growth that you're getting, are you able to identify your problem areas, are you able to work on your problem areas as well. So that would be a continuous effort that will be going across while we will be tracking the progress within SAT itself. At the same time, you need to go out, look for additional support, consider, joining comprehensive programs. For example, there are various also outside, but they have this one Dream School University, but at the Score University. At the same time, I'd rather suggest Let's Unbound has got some fantastic tools and resources where we would help you across in maximizing those scores and really getting as close as to a 1500 or 1550, beyond which you're almost good for any top college in USA. Now, as I've already said, and I've also explained that SAT itself can be given in multiple attempts. What I have now really broken down the next section, I have seen what I've tried to do, a grade 10 student, a grade 11 student, how should they be preparing for their SAT? What are the kind of attempts they should be giving? I've also divided this, grade 10 student on CBSC, ICSE versus IGCSE and IB, because the timelines of their exams are very much different. Normally your CBSC exams happen, normally they'll be concluded by March or latest by April, where you will see IGCSE and IB exams do continue all the way up till, just the start of May or the end of April itself. So the time while you'll be taking the SAT will be differing dependent if you're a domestic on a domestic board or on an international board. So firstly, for the students on a domestic board which are currently in grade 10, once your course would be completed by I think March or April of 2025 itself, you need to register for SAT by 18th of April 2025. You could access the SAT College Board website and you could go ahead for it. Your exam happen on 3rd 2025. Should be the attempt of every kid who's currently in grade 10. What this attempt will allow you to do is to understand where are your weak areas, and the preparation should ideally just start across now, because you'll be preparing in January, February, March and April. These 4 months will give you enough time for you to go ahead and then attempt the exam on 3rd of May. The second SAT attempt, your preparation itself should start across again by September itself, where you would be applying in October. So you give yourself 2 months of preparation again, just going across, all of those sections wherever you made your mistakes. So then your second SAT attempt would, start to create those super scores. A lot of times what happens within SAT attempt 1, that neither your maths or English section has come up to that right level, and you're still really testing the water. SAT attempt should definitely at least generate one of your super scores. Either your math should be the final score or your English should be the final score, where eventually The SAT that you will then take next year in May of 2026, that should then become your last and final SAT attempt. And through SAT attempt 2 and 3, you should get your super score. And this is what I'm talking about, a kid in grade 10. So obviously, by the time that you're in May of 2020, April in 2026, your 12th will be starting across, and in October of 2026, you will be then applying. So before let's see, your June, July, and August start, your SAT should be looked across at. So then you have ample time preparing for those essays, preparing for the personal final drafts of your personal statement, looking at your letters of recommendation. So we very strongly recommend students, if they are looking at this preparation right from grade 10 itself, ideally your final attempt should just happen in May of 2026, and SAT should be closed after that. If you're a student who's on IGCSE, and largely by that time you'll be on A level, but since grade 10 is largely called IGCSE, so I've just named it in that manner. If you're one of those students, your attempt 1 should be largely happening around June of 7, because again, both of these boards do extend their exams. They happen after the CBSE 1. The registration would then happen on the 22nd of May. And again, the preparation, even if you're in CBSE or IGCSE or IB, it should start immediately on the Jan of 2025, where the following attempt, the second one in the case of international boards, will happen on 6th of December, where your preparation starts in October, November, again 2 months of preparation, and attempting your second SAT before getting your first super score, and then your third attempt should ideally be concluded, even for an international student, by 6th of June. Now, I'm sure not a lot of students who have joined us across today are in grade 10 itself. I'm sure a lot of them would be in grade 11. All of those kids that are in grade 9 itself, it's too early for you to think across on a SAT score, because ideally your SAT syllabus hasn't concluded. You should be starting to take your SAT score after your grade 10 board exam, because that is the whole syllabus when it comes to SAT preparations. Now, moving across to grade 11, I'm not saying for those kids it's too late for you, but now you will see that your third SAT attempt can be now pushed all the way up till the August of 2025. The only problem that's going to be happening, you realize your 11th will be ending in March. By the time you're in August, you will be in grade 12. That is the time when you'll be just concluding over your essays and personal statement. But for the reason that there has been a little bit of a lag, so they maybe your SAT attempt does get pushed till the August of 2025. But for all of those kids in grade 11 who haven't actually attempted any SAT attempts in let's say December, last month itself, your first attempt should immediately come by the 3rd of May, where you have given 3 to 4 months of practice right from Jan. So that first SAT attempt practice of 3 to 4 months again remains the same, regardless you being on 10th or 11th. By the time you hit your second attempt, we can't give you another 2 months of preparation for SAT attempt 2. Also trying to understand that your syllabus has been well covered by, if you're studying maths even in grade 11, so it shouldn't take you too much of preparation for your second and third attempt. So in both situations, we do just suggest 1 month of preparation itself for your SAT attempt 2, which will happen on the 7th of June, or your third attempt, which will happen on the 23rd of August of 2025. Both of them will require one month of preparation. Now, eventually for your IGCSE and IB students, where by the time now, since you're in 11th, this level is called AS levels or A levels, you would be giving your first attempt in June, followed by a second attempt on 23rd of August, and the eventual attempt cannot go even a single day after September, because October is only about evaluating your application, doing the last levels of checks, and having them submitted before the 1st of November, which is largely the deadline for your Common App application. There are other colleges as well, UC California, but then UC does not really matter in the situation since they're SAT blind. MITs have a different date. Universities of Texas have a separate date. But yet again, it's a very safe bet to say complete all of your testing largely before May or June if you're currently in grade 10. If you're in grade 11 and have not made a SAT attempt, you may then have to push yourself till August or September. If you've already made a SAT in December, so it's extremely good. Your second and third SAT attempts would then happen May, June, August, dependent on the board that you are typically studying across on. And for this part here, I have this one really interesting link that I'd like to leave you across at. Again, on the chat section, just go across, take a, I'm sorry, I think I just put that on a one-on-one, change this. So yeah, now you could go to your chat section again. I have just dropped this newsletter that we had created. It really talks about how many times can you take the SAT, and it really breaks down this whole philosophy. So that's another resource that I've just put across onto the chat section. Do make sure that you access it and you use it in its right manner possible. Now, moving across to our approach, largely this is what our session has been designed across as well, to give you an understanding of what is the SAT, the diagnostic test, what is the SAT digital lab. So I'm just again going back onto the chat section. I'm dropping you another link. This link will directly connect you to our assessment page, in which you could go ahead and take a SAT diagnostic. So the first thing that we do, we assess the primary skill set in order to understand where the gaps are, what are the bridging that is need to be done, post which we create a personalized study plan and largely encourage one-to-one live tutoring with one of our top consultants and mentors. And at your own convenience, right across the world, you'd be able to sit and work towards this top SAT score. Eventually, you'll also get exclusive strategy sessions in which we'll be looking at where exactly are your problem areas, how better can we get you to do that full Monty of 1600, and eventually you have a full length mock tests and live mocks. We do have 20 live sessions that we do, and that really prepares you in the right way. Now, the other mantra that we really talk in extreme seriousness while students are preparing with us are the three strong pillars which are required for you to get admission. Accuracy is extremely important, where it really comes from understanding and application of the concept. That's what we're talking in terms of accuracy. It's to go through the syllabus and to understand how best, it's not just to know the topic, but how best you're able to apply the knowledge within maths and English. And really, honestly, it's a battle of speed. It's a 2.5 hour exam. Well, a lot of times, our mentors do say, if you give the same SAT exam in 4 hours for a student to give it, every student will get a 1600 over a 1600. The challenge is to actually do it in 2.5 hours. And at the same time, I know a bit of a counter thought on that, but at the same time, the speed is a problem, but it also has that strategy and stamina thing, because you'd be going and doing this examination for 2.5 hours. And to conclude this, I would like to share one of this favorite quote attributed to Tuesday himself, where he said that I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I actually fear the man who has practiced one kick but 1,000 times. So the idea behind SAT is exactly in this line. It's not just mastering the concept, which I spoke at the start, the accuracy or the speed. It's actually the practice after practice after practice. And the way we would like to do it is that we make students do 20 SAT mocks, and your eventual actual SAT exam itself will then just become the 21st SAT mock test itself. And then that pressure that normally does lie in SAT itself really does reduces. Now, moving across, just to give you a quick look of how does the diagnostic test summary look like. As your result, once you have given it, will be shown in this way, where your section 1, section 2 will be divided in how much time you took overall, how many time you took at a specific question, how many did you attempt, within attempt how many were corrected, and also the ones that you skipped, and also the time it took you to skip them. So all of those various aspects are then evaluated, let's say section by section itself. And at the same time, you have a very in-detailed report that you'll also be getting. So you could see, for example, the reading and writing section, the craft, structure, words in context, the central ideas, details, all of those aspects. Green being your correct one, red being the wrong one. And obviously, if you have skipped any question, that is also put across. At the same time, the time taken to get the correct answer, the time taken to stop at the wrong, incorrect answer, and also for the skip. Because as I've said, it's not just accuracy, it's also very much speed that needs to go hand in hand. And you'd be getting that same kind of a report when it comes for your math section as well. Now, moving across, why digital SAT itself? One of the aspects that I've really liked about SAT It is that three-tiered approach where we will first start across introducing you with the basics, then we will bring in the difficulty sections, introducing the mediums level. And by the time that you're ready with your 20th or 21st SAT attempt, we'll have to that advanced kind of questioning. So it really eases you into that SAT level of difficulty. We have got decades of research because even while we had started a decade ago, we had started the SAT preparation right from the word go. We have a digital SAT web portal as well that really helps you cross in the right way. Right. Yeah. So then now we will just now move across after the Y digital SAT exam to a couple of, how that has gone across as a success. What we do within the tutoring and strategy, it's got 90 hours of foundation prep strategy. We've got 45 hours of live tutoring, mock test analysis. We also do have 60 hours of mock tests as well. So these all various aspects would be available to you. Now, these are various reasons of why you should be looking at SAT. An example of a student that we had worked with who had gone on from 1190 to 1340 in 60 days. The student was in grade 12 and he had come across just 2 months before the October exam of 2024. We helped him when it came to those struggles that he was facing within reading and writing, and eventually clocked the score of 1340. Another kid that we worked with, and I think this is a very interesting video that is also available there. I could also share this website with you on the section itself. Just give me a second. I'll just put it across into the chat section. So you'll be able to look at this on our website as well. The two students do give a very good detailed understanding of how they went across and got their right kind of a SAT score. Now, this is another example where a student went across from 1300 all the way up to a 1540, overcoming speed and stamina charges. This was a high-performing student in grade 11, but was still around that 1300 SAT score. What he really needed to understand, not just beyond the concept, the three that I have spoken constantly, is the speed and accuracy that we helped him get through. And eventually he clocked a 800 of 800 in maths and complemented that 740 within English itself, and a total SAT score of 1540. Now, beyond SAT, as I said, there are various other programs that we do run, from AP sessions, your Olympiads that we do provide. We have courses for middle school programs, for elementary school programs. So that's just to give you an overall look at the work that we do. Now, as I said, my session will end across with those various resources. I'll just leave this on for a couple of seconds. That is the QR code that you need to access if you are looking at diagnostic tests. Just also go back, go to your chat section again. I'm just dropping another question here. Link for you to look across at. This is an article that we
really put across. It is how to get a 800 in your digital SAT reading and writing section, and I think that should really help in that right way.
We also do put across a lot of masterclass and webinars. The one that is being conducted today, you'll be able to find it on our YouTube link, and various such other sessions that we have done. At the same time, we do put across a lot of newsletters, and the QR code at the bottom should take you to our Beehive platform, and you'll be able to access all of these various topics beyond the SAT question itself. Right, and these are two more QRs that you could use to join our podcast, to join our website, our WhatsApp group. The idea behind all of these various platforms, it's only to make sure that you are getting as much as information as possible, and to connect you with people that are actually looking at the SAT examination. Now, eventually, just take a QR scan of this code, get connected with us. We could create an exclusive information session for you, in which we then helping you with a personalized study plan. That was what I had planned for our session today. We'll be concluding now. But before I do, I will just go across and look at the various questions that you have. Would you suggest between SAT or ACT? Honestly, this is a very individualistic question. We actually have a very detailed newsletter on those various links that I had shared that really compares SAT and ACT. So do have access of that. It really depends on what kind of student, what kind of topics are you, what are in maths. So I would say that is an individualistic thing. Is the diagnostic
Free? Definitely, it is free. You could have a look at it. I will just see if I could share the link. Otherwise, just take a QR code that you're seeing on my screen now. We'll just connect with you directly and give you that SAT diagnostic. We could also help you with a couple of more diagnostics itself. Right. So I think I'll just take one more question from this. With a background from ICSC, I would rather tell you, I think because see, it's grade 10 level maths. It doesn't matter if you're from ICSC or CBSE, you'll find both of them extremely doable with a preparation time of 2 to 3 months. That shouldn't be a problem if you're from ICSC in that way. Do mention if they need 2 or 3 SAT scores on their website. Okay, yeah. See, with a lot of the websites, they do very clearly write what kinds of there. This is which is called the CDS document. It's there with almost every university. So find the CDS document of every university itself. It will very clearly set you out on what are the kind of SAT scores attempts that you need to make. Sure. So those are the questions that I was taking across for today. I would like to conclude our session. Please do join us even next week. I think next week we'll be taking into an extreme detail about advanced placements. How are you supposed to tackle that or aspect? How does that help you in preparing for that admission? I am just concluding it with this one last question. SAT is not used for IIT. IIT is still a traditional setup going through the joint entrance exam. Thank you. Thank you today for joining us across. I hope you guys found this session worth your time, and looking forward to meeting all of you again next week, and we'll be discussing advanced placement at Extreme. Thank you.